everybody. This is Jyotsna Ramachandran here, and welcome to Self-Publishing Advice Podcast Beginner Salon. With me, we have Iain Rob Wright, our co-host. Hi, Iain. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's great to be here as always. How are you?
Wonderful, Iain. It's nice to connect with you again after a month. This is the episode we are doing for March, right?
Yeah, episode number 2.
Yeah. So, how has life been in the last 1 month?
It's been pretty good. I've revisited Facebook advertising, and for some reason, it's been working really, really well, better than it has done before for me. So I've increased sort of the money I'm making by about 50% at the moment from running these ads. So I'm really hitting advertising hard at the moment. And I'm also working on a original script for Audible directly. They reached out and contacted me 2 years ago now. But I just actually started work on it this week, so that's completely new to me because it's script writing. So that's fun. That's what I'm doing at the moment. Instead of writing a new book, I'm writing a script for Audible.
That's very interesting because it's quite different from writing a actual book, right?
It's actually, I'm finding it much easier because there's so less that goes into it. It's very, especially for audio, it's just dialogue really. I'm adding sound effects here and there. It's not a narrated book like Audible usually does. It's actually a specific audio drama written only to be played in audio. So there's a lot of sound effects. There's going to be professional actors doing the different parts and things. So it's really fun and exciting. But for writing it, I can't believe how quickly it goes. I've got to write a 30-minute script for episode 1, the pilot. And I'm sort of a third of the way there already because it's so quick when you're used to writing so much description and prose and things. So just suddenly only have to do dialogue and throw in a couple of technical descriptions. It's great. It's fun and it's also a skill that I'm adding.
So it's a different learning. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun to sort of still be learning new things even now after sort of 7 years.
Nice. And I'm working on my next book called Book Your Success. So it's shaping up well. I have the book outlined and I hope to launch it by the month of May. So that's the main project that I'm going to focus on. And I've also started a cookbook series. So I am very passionate about eating, not cooking. So what I've done is I'm not a pro at cooking. So I have collaborated with an Italian chef. So she's writing the recipes, I'm just curating them, and we are going to publish it together. So I'm quite excited about that.
What type of cuisine is it?
So the first book is about clean eating. So how do you come out of all the processed foods that we are so used to and just focus on the real raw ingredients? So it's about that. Right. So yeah, what's going to be the topic for this episode, Iain?
Well, last podcast we spoke about sort of getting your book produced and how to make your book. So now we're at a stage where we've got the book ready to go and we want to look at our options for sort of how we can start to make money from our book and how we can get it into the hands of readers. So we're looking at distribution today.
Awesome, yeah. And as self-published authors, our first preference is usually Amazon, right? So what are the different services of Amazon you use for publishing your books?
It's always a bit of an ethical dilemma with Amazon. On the one hand, Amazon changed my life completely. They gave me this wonderful opportunity, and that without Amazon, I wouldn't be a best-selling author. They completely gave that opportunity to me, and I ran with it. So there's this great love that I have for Amazon, and all that, people see it as this big bad corporation that's going to do evil things. They literally changed my life, and they've given my wife and my children this wonderful life, and I've achieved my dream. So I have a great deal of love for Amazon, and I suppose for that reason I am a little bit biased towards them. But also as a businessman, I do worry that having all of my business on Amazon puts me in a precarious position, in that Amazon have made decisions in the past that have affected my income because they try new things and they don't always work out well for everybody. So they are able to damage my career and boost it, and having that control in the hands of Amazon, it keeps me awake some nights. So one of the key things that I would like to see is more competition from the likes of Apple and Barnes and Nobles and things. So I'm certainly not pro Amazon in that I want Amazon to be the be all and end all. But the reality of this, of the publishing landscape at the moment means quite often I do tend to be focused almost completely on Amazon. There's probably a wider audience for you to make use of the wider distribution platforms than for myself. But for fiction, Definitely,
Right.
you don't want to ignore Amazon. It should be your primary focus when you get started, I believe, because that's what's
Mm,
going to give you the foothold and help you to establish yourself.
correct.
But again, that's my opinion from where I currently sit, and there's certainly lots of authors out there who are doing really well, particularly on Kobo and
Mm.
the Apple
Nook.
iBooks as well. So I mean, what are your experiences?
Yeah, so when I started out, Ian, I was also just focused only on Amazon. And then this KENP thing happened and my royalties dropped to half. And
Yeah,
that's when I realized that we just can't depend on one platform and have all our eggs in one basket. So that was definitely a learning. But as you rightly said, Amazon is even today the biggest marketplace. For me, more than 90% of my book sales happen on Amazon. So we cannot ignore that fact. So my advice to first time authors would be to initially go with KDP for their ebook, because the good thing about KDP is it lets you put your book for give away your book for free for 5 days if you're a part of KDP Select. So what I do now is I initially launch with Amazon, and then after 3 months I pull the book out of KDP and I make it available on other ebook distribution platforms as well. So, but I see that a lot of authors with a huge email list and a huge following don't care anymore about launching their book for free because they are just uh,
no.
losing the opportunity of having a good launch. So they just probably have a 99-cent launch, and for which they don't need to be exclusive with Amazon. So, what do you think about that, Ian?
Yeah, absolutely. And we touched on this last time. If you've got a mailing list and a website, that's an audience you control. So it gives you that stability to not have to sell through Amazon. So I think from day one, even if you don't have a lot to offer because you're a new author with maybe one or two books or maybe you're working on a book, focus on that mailing list from the get go, even though it'll be difficult to sign people up when you don't have any name recognition. Always make it a focus, and it should grow as you grow as an author, hopefully. And then that does give you the ability to reach people on the other platforms. KDP does give you promotional tools, and it's all about visibility, especially when you're starting out. So the promotional tools that Amazon give you, they can be used sort of strategically for a new author to start gaining those initial readers that are going to get them the word of mouth and the
Right.
reviews. And unfortunately, the other networks, the other platforms are lacking in that regard, in that they don't really give you a great deal to help yourself. And the only way you can really help yourself on the other platforms is by taking it into your own hands and having a mailing list and running adverts on Facebook and things. There's no sort of organic tools that they give you. So I'd say, I suppose, really, Amazon is for beginners and intermediates, and then when you get established and you're a bit more advanced, you can start utilising the other platforms because they do take
Sure.
investment. They take, an advertising budget and some smart promotion, which for a beginning author isn't something you want to overwhelm yourself with. KDP is a lot easier to get established. You can be published in 24 hours and making the odd sale, and then you can just build from there. And if you start to make a bit of money on KDP, then you can funnel it into other platforms, perhaps with adverts.
Absolutely, yeah. So when you talk about other platforms, Ian, do you individually go and submit your book to these different websites like iBooks and Google Play and other places, or do you use a distribution service like Draft to Digital or Smashwords?
I used Smashwords initially, and
Mhm.
there's a couple of my books which are wide, and some of them are free on the other platforms, which has made Amazon price match them, which is something we can go into at a different time. But there's a reason that you may want to use Smashwords or Draft to Digital in order to get Amazon to make your book free. So I did use Smashwords early on just for that sole purpose, but I did later switch to Draft to Digital, which I prefer, and I have actually got some books that are on sale at a price on Draft to Digital. So I have gone wide with a couple of books, and they're on Draft to Digital purely because I like the platform, the software on the website seems very easy, and they seem to come up with new tools quite often. Whereas Smashwords, I found it's a bit outdated. It could do with
Mm,
a bit of a fundamental sort of rejigging to make it more modern, user friendly.
right.
And I just think Draft to Digital is a bit of a nicer service to use, and I have seen sales sort of come from Draft to Digital without me doing anything. Not a
Mm,
great deal of sales, but I do get a few dollars trickle in every week or so just from having a couple of books on there. Um,
sure.
I know authors, sort of author friends of mine, do say that going to each individual platform, so uploading your book to Apple, Barnes and
Mm,
Noble, Kobo separately, can give you benefits. You can get slightly higher royalties because you're not having to pay off Draft to Digital for their cut or
Yeah.
Smashwords.
Otherwise, you need to pay a 10% or something like
Yeah,
that, right?
I think it's different because they go to all different platforms. It's all different royalties, but
Mm.
you do lose a little bit of income from using the aggregates like Draft to Digital and Smashwords. But for me personally, because I have so many books to manage and I have a lot of
Mm.
things to do. For me, being able to just upload my book to one platform and then they distribute it for me, that's worth the money that I'm giving up. If I was a
Yeah.
new author and I only had one book, then the effort required to get them onto each individual platform might be worth it, especially if you're after the most amount of royalties. So it's definitely a choice. It's again, we went into this last time. It's how much is your time worth to you? If you'd rather have the extra time than use an aggregate
Mm.
like Draft to Digital, if you want the
Yeah.
maximum amount of money and you don't mind putting in that little bit of extra effort, then yeah, by all means do everyone individually. I don't think there's really any negatives to either way. It's completely a personal
Right.
choice.
Right. And what used to scare me before was I used to think it's a big deal to be available in some 20 different stores.
Yeah,
But because of these kind of services, it makes our lives easy, basically. And you don't, as an author, we don't need to do much. It's the same file. Probably, I would upload a Mobi file to KDP and an EPUB file
yeah,
to the other guys. So otherwise, it's not much of work from an
no,
author's side, right? So I think it's always good to make use of these different platforms because I've noticed that when authors promote their books inside like a BookBub or some kind of a promotional website, they would definitely give preference to a book that's available everywhere
yeah, they
rather
do.
than a book that's just Amazon only.
Yeah. No, and that didn't used to be the case. I used to find it really easy to get book promotions. I used to get one almost every month. Now
Hmm.
they probably accept me twice a year, and they've actually told me that the reason they don't accept me as often is because my books generally tend to be Amazon exclusive. So they definitely do factor that in now, and that's one of the ways you can gain success on Kobo and Barnes and Nobles by getting that
Hmm.
BookBub deal. You can make a lot of money on the other platforms. By using BookBub and Facebook ads. So again, it's a bit more of an advanced part of the industry to get success in that you do need to make use of BookBub and Facebook, whereas on Amazon you may be able to get by without those. But yeah, they're definitely a key part of going wide. You need to be very proactive with your marketing, and things like BookBub are even more
True.
important on the other platforms.
That's true. In fact, I read an article written by Joanna Penn, the other
Hmm.
host of the Advanced Salon, and she mentioned that she was able to hit her USA Today bestseller charts only because her book was available on all the different platforms.
Yeah.
Otherwise, because they take not just the ebook sale, but every other format of book and every other platform is taken into account. So I think that way, once you start thinking bigger
Yeah,
and have
yeah.
higher aspirations, then I think it makes total sense to be available everywhere.
Yeah, and I think your audience size matters there as well. I mean, if you write thrillers like James Patterson, then there's going to be tens of millions of readers on Amazon alone that you'll never reach in your lifetime. So you'll never run out of readers on KDP if you're a thriller. If you're writing books about fishing, then there might only
Yeah,
be 10,000 people on Amazon that are going to read your book. So you need that wider platform. You need to go and find readers
right.
wherever you can find them. So again, it depends sort of, what you're targeting because it may be that there isn't enough people on Amazon alone to give you the
Sure.
sales you need. So niche versus sort of mass market books as well will factor into whether you go wide or go KDP.
That's true. Can we talk a little bit, Ian, about the paperback version of the book? So, your choice still CreateSpace, or do you go with KDP paperback?
No, no. As I said last time, for the last sort of several years, I've been predominantly CreateSpace, but I have slowly been moving over to
Hmm.
KDP print purely because, to me, the writing's on the wall that Amazon are obviously not going to want two systems in play that do the same thing. So I think it's pretty obvious to me that CreateSpace is being phased out, and eventually everything will be done through
Yeah.
the KDP dashboard. So my advice to authors would be to go straight to KDP print. And for one thing, it's much easier to use because it takes all the metadata and your descriptions from what you've already put
Yeah.
in for your ebook and ties everything together. But I just think it's going to present a problem in the future where CreateSpace authors are probably going to be told they've got to migrate whether they like it or not. There is a few things missing from KDP print in regards to expanded distribution. But over the
Right.
last few months, you've seen a couple of the things that are missing slowly be added, and I think in time, probably within this year, all of the things available on CreateSpace will be on
Yeah.
KDP print, and they won't be any different.
Yeah. Yeah, at that point, I think there won't be much of a difference, and then KDP would be the more obvious choice, right?
Yeah, because I mean, one of the things missing was you couldn't order your own proof copies at the author discount. They've added that to KDP print now, so they've added that. One thing that a lot of authors were saying they wouldn't leave CreateSpace because they want to buy their own stock. So they've
Hmm.
rectified that issue. I think the last thing now is the expanded distribution to libraries and stores, but I can only see it being a matter of months before they bring that along as well. And I'd say another 2 years in CreateSpace will start to be closed down, I think. So
Sure.
really the option now is KDP print or Lightning Source are the options that authors should consider now.
Right. I just wanted to check with you about what's your take on launching the ebook and paperback? Do you do it together? Because when I talk to my clients, sometimes people tell me that, hey, let's launch the ebook. It's easier. Let's do the paperback after a couple of months. And I tell them it's not that big a deal. It's just, you just need a back cover. That's it. So, and maybe a different format for the print ready version. So some people who are new to this, they think that it's a big deal to publish the paperback and they just postpone the launch.
Yeah.
But I tell them that just do it together. It doesn't, it'll help the ebook promotion will help the sale of the paperback and vice versa. What do you think about that?
I think if you want to run adverts and things to push your launch and go to a mailing list, you should have both of them because if I
Hmm.
run a Facebook advert on an ebook, I tend to see a few paperback sales as well off the
Yeah.
back of that. So it's important to have both. It used to be that I probably didn't release the paperback for another month or so after because I
Hmm.
used to find it such a stress having to format the paperback in. I used to use Adobe InDesign, so my paperbacks were pretty professional. I didn't go for a basic paperback. I made sure they were really
Hmm.
good, but that also meant it took a lot of time on Adobe InDesign, and I didn't enjoy doing it. So I put it off a little bit. And the ebook's so easy to get up that I would just have that for a while. But since I've started using Vellum, which gives you a paperback
Hmm.
file as well, I
Hmm.
do them on the same day now because everything gets spit out of my software Vellum at the same time. So it's
Right.
definitely better to get them both up together. But like you said, it doesn't really matter, especially for me personally. For every 100 ebooks I sell, I might sell one paperback. So for me, a paperback isn't ever really a massive concern. It's just,
Hmm.
it's nice to have. And I actually think it helps you sell ebooks because if someone clicks on your ebook page and it just
Hmm.
says ebook, it makes it look a little bit amateurish. But if it says
Yeah.
ebook, paperback, audiobook, it
Audiobook.
makes you seem a bit more legit. It makes you seem like a bigger deal. So I think
Yeah.
having all these options, it gives the buyer confidence that you're an
Hmm.
established product because you haven't just got an ebook. That, to be honest, scammers can put ebooks on Amazon. They've written a
Sure.
10-page pamphlet and they're trying to make money from putting garbage up
Hmm.
there or something. But if you've got a paperback and an audiobook as well, that shows that there's effort
Yeah.
and professionalism that's gone into your product. So the ebook's
Absolutely.
likely to be more professional because you're more professional as an author, that you have all these products. So for that reason alone, I always have a paperback, even if it's not making me much money. I believe it just presents your product a lot more professionally by
Yeah.
having those options.
True. And what I've noticed is sometimes when the paperback is priced at, say, $20 and your ebook is for $2,
Yeah,
people think, wow, the ebook is at a great offer and they end up buying it. So
yeah,
it
absolutely.
helps in driving
Yeah,
the sales. And it
yeah.
also depends on the genre sometimes because used to publish cookbooks even before and I had them only as ebooks. But the minute I put them on paperback, the paperback sale would be 3 or 4 times more than the ebook sale because people like to hold it,
Yeah,
place
yeah.
it on the kitchen shelf and cook. So I think it depends on the type of book also.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
especially for certain kinds of nonfiction, I
Mm.
think it's essential to have paperback. Otherwise, we are
Yeah,
just losing a lot of money.
yeah, absolutely. I think non-fiction paperback becomes a lot more important. Um, I think fiction, it's a lot more accessible on a Kindle than a non-fiction book is. So I think there's a bigger portion of readers that have migrated to e-readers. But then when you look at students and people buying
Mm.
cookbooks and things, textbooks, they still want them as paper. So if you're writing
Right.
non-fiction, definitely the paperback should be more of a priority than it is for a fiction author like myself.
That's right. You briefly mentioned about Lightning Source. So is that the service you use to distribute a paperback outside Amazon?
I don't use it myself personally, but publishers that I know and sort of colleagues have used Lightning Source, and it is, from what I can see, a more professional product. It's a better finish on the cover and the pages and things than CreateSpace and KDP print are. If you put a
Right.
KDP print or a CreateSpace book next to a book from Penguin or Random House, it doesn't quite look as professional. It's almost there,
Yeah.
but not quite. It's just slightly lacking.
Yeah.
Lightning Source is really, there's no difference. It's as professional as a big
Hmm.
printing house. But
It's the
they,
same as Ingram Spark, right?
yeah, it is. Yeah. So if you want to do a print run, so if you're planning on selling your books to a bookstore and you want to print off 5,000 copies, then Lightning Source is probably going to be better because they do print runs, which will give you a better
Hmm.
unit cost because they're printing so many at once. So if you want to make a living or run some sort of promotion that involves an actual printed copy and you want to buy a lot of that, then Lightning Source is definitely a better option because it's more professional. They allow you
Yeah.
to do offset printing so you can save money on unit costs. And they also, and this is a big one, they allow you to do hardbacks as well. So if you want to create a
Hmm.
hardback version of your book, which
Yeah.
might be nice for a cookbook, for example, then you don't have that option with KDP Print or CreateSpace. So
Right.
for those who want hardbacks, then Lightning Source is the option you're left with.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you just have a small setup cost of $50 or something. But
yeah,
and I think for ALLi members there is a special discount. I'm not sure. Probably we can have the link somewhere.
yeah,
But I think that small amount doesn't really. If you're very very quality conscious, then I think it's
yeah.
worth the.
And I know, a couple of author friends I've got that run small presses. They use Lightning Source purely because it's more professional,
Yeah.
and because they are trying to sell their books, at conventions and in bookstores and things. So they want to be able to go
Right.
with a really professional product. CreateSpace and KDP Print, that for the casual reader, that they're absolutely perfect. They're fine. But if you
Yeah.
want to impress, a bookstore owner, then Lightning Source just gives you that little bit of an edge, and that the cover's printed a bit
Absolutely.
bit better, and the pages
Yeah.
feel a bit more like the top thing people are used to.
Hmm. Sure. And for the authors, both CreateSpace and Lightning Source, they offer it at the cost price, right? They don't charge the actual retail price, right?
No, if you want to buy your own copies, then because CreateSpace and KDP are print on demand,
Hmm.
you're going to pay a bit more for your own stock compared to Lightning Source, where you can do an offset print. So you can
Yeah.
say, I'm going to order 5,000 copies from Lightning Source to be
Hmm.
printed all at once in a big batch. You'll find that will reduce the cost of each book if you do it that way. So if you do want a lot of books printed, then Lightning Source will be cheaper because you can do an offset run.
Right.
If you only want to buy 10 books here and there, 50 books for a convention, you pay a bit more if CreateSpace and KDP print, but the fact that you don't have to pay the startup costs, and it's so easy to print the exact amount that you need. You don't need to do a print run of 5,000. You can do a print run of 20. Because
Hmm.
it's all printed on demand. It's more expensive, but it's a lot more convenient for authors that don't have a lot of money to spend on print runs and things.
Right. So for the paperback book, apart from these options, where else do you distribute? Like you said, you order bulk copies of your book. So what do you do with them? Do you sell it anywhere outside on your own as well?
I've sold at conventions before, and that does
Yeah.
fine, and you can make a profit. Because I've got young children, I don't really do many of those. I may do in the future. So that's one place you can set up, a stand at a convention. There's lots of horror conventions that
Yeah.
I can go to, and you can find readers and also, sell signed copies for maybe,
Mm.
£20, $20, and make a really good profit when the book's only costing you sort of $4 or $5 to purchase from CreateSpace.
Right.
So that's one reason you might have a big print of 200 copies that you want to sell. Or if you're the type of person that's really a get up and go type of person, you can print a big box of books and go around your local independent bookstores and try and sell
Mm.
a certain amount to them. It's difficult, it takes a lot of work, and I don't necessarily think you're going to end up making the best use of your time if you do that. I know J.A. Conrath spent years going around libraries and bookstores and eventually came to the conclusion that it just wasn't worth it. But if
Hmm.
that's important to you, seeing your book in your local bookstore, then that's the reason you get a lot of them printed off. And it is
Yeah.
possible. There's authors that have done it. I know Waterstones quite often will print a local author in the same town. They have like a bit of a spotlight on local authors. So it really depends what you're trying to get out of it. For me,
Hmm.
because I'm focused pretty much on profit, I only focus on the things that are going to give me the best investment of my time. So that's not for me.
Yeah.
But if I'd
Correct.
written a book that was my life history and it was really important to
Hmm.
me that it was in bookstores, then that will be my focus. But I'm very much
Yeah.
about selling the most amount of copies and making money. And if
Correct.
that's ebook only, that for me that's fine.
Yeah. I think what you said makes a lot of sense because each author writes a book with a different purpose in mind. So it totally depends on that. Like for me, I've seen some of my clients, they do these big book launch events in five-star hotels. So for them, the buying books in bulk is really
Yeah,
important
yeah,
because they do these launches, they go on book tours and all of that. So that is one kind of an author. There are other people who go to industry conferences, as you said, or they get invited as speakers and they
yeah,
sell the book at the back of the room. So that's something that's quite profitable because
yeah.
people listen to them for 30 minutes. They just trust them, and then you tell them you have a book,
Yeah.
and people don't mind spending $20 at.
No, no, absolutely. And if you're if you're a motivational speaker and you've written a book about, business or whatever, you can do
Hmm.
these, these talks and you get people to come to the talks, and then the profit is in selling the book as they leave. So there's a lot of people that do that. They
Hmm.
give these motivational talks. Maybe they've even been hired by a company to come in and talk, and then at the back of the room there's a
Yeah.
table full of their books. So again, that's a different business model, and that's very non-fiction based.
Hmm.
But again, if you've got an online course, if you've got a motivational book, then you can go out and you can do these speaking arrangements, and then try and sell your book at the back. That's a business model in itself that you do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Even for fiction, Ian, I've seen some genre specific book fairs like Horror Fest and
yeah,
stuff like that, and authors do have their stalls put up there, and they do all kinds of
Yeah, I mean,
crazy.
one of my colleagues, Matt Shaw, does a convention almost every month,
Hmm.
and because he enjoys that life, he enjoys being out with other authors, meeting his
Yeah,
readers. So
signing
to
copies of the book.
Yeah, absolutely. So to him, even if it doesn't make a great deal of money, that's the lifestyle for him. That's what being a writer means to him. He wants to
Right.
have that life, and that he needs to print books to do that. So
Hmm.
again, for me, I couldn't think of anything worse than being on the road all the time or having to give talks in public. I would hate all that. So I'm that that's not me at all. But for other authors,
Yeah.
absolutely. And if they can fill a table full of their books, and it makes them seem like the real deal. So.
Audible. Can we quickly talk about the audiobook distribution as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a no-brainer getting an audiobook out. There's a service called ACX, which is part of Amazon again. What you do is you upload your book onto ACX, and then there's a whole host of narrators who will look at the sample of your work, and they will actually come to you and give you a sample of their narration of your book. So maybe 15 minutes of the first chapter. And
Hmm.
if you like one of the narrators and the way they're reading your work out loud, you can work with them through a contract agreement, which
Yeah.
means they produce the audiobook of your of your book completely free of charge. They don't charge you anything up front, but they get 50% of all the royalties that Audible pay out when the audiobook's on sale. So they call it a royalty share scheme, and it's great for self-published authors because there's no
Hmm.
initial investment. It doesn't cost them anything, doesn't even take them any work, because all they're doing is
Right.
giving us, giving a copy of their book that they've already written. They've already put all
Hmm.
the work into that, and then they're letting somebody else, a third person, do all of the work to create an audiobook. And then what that person gets is on the back end, they get 50% of the sales. If you become more established and you want all the royalties for yourself, you can work out an agreement where you pay the narrator up front. So you pay them maybe
Yeah.
$1,200 to do the narration for you, and then that's it. They never earn another penny, and all the royalties come to
Yeah.
you. So you've got that option. But if you don't want to spend money up front, which most self-published authors don't want to do, this royalty
Hmm.
share option on ACX is brilliant because it takes away all the risk. All it can do is earn you money. So it's an absolutely fantastic service that all authors should use, whether they're fiction or
Sure.
non-fiction. Go onto ACX, find a narrator you like working with,
Yeah.
and get something going. And it's really fun to hear your work read back as well.
Yeah, that's true. What I did for my book was I went into Upwork.com and I posted a job, and there were plenty of narrators. And luckily, my book was not too long. It was just 20,000 words, so I didn't have to shell out too much of
No.
money in paying them upfront. But if your book is longer, then yeah, it could run into thousands of dollars as well.
Yeah.
So I paid somebody, I think, $200 or $300, and then all the royalties has been mine. So do you again prefer going ACX exclusive, where you get, I think, 40% royalties, or non-exclusive when you get 25%?
Again, I'm a bit to blame for being so biased towards Amazon, but I do go exclusive. But it's mainly because I don't have any
Other place.
experience in selling audiobooks anywhere. So I feel more
Right.
comfortable with Amazon because I know how the Amazon website works, and because I'm sending so
Mm.
much traffic to Amazon to buy
Hmm.
my ebook and my paperbacks and things, and all my marketing list is directed towards Amazon. I know that a majority of what I'm doing marketing wise and promotional wise is aimed at Amazon. So the more money I make from Amazon, on an audiobook, the better for me because that's where my focus is anyway. If I
Right.
was with yourself, you had the luxury of, because you were willing to pay up front, that gives you the option to use websites like Upwork, and you can find a narrator from sort of anywhere. You're not
Hmm.
tied down to the Amazon ecosystem, so it's good to be free to go to places like Upwork, and where you might
Yeah.
find people that are slightly more professional.
Right. I
And
see, in fact, some authors who are probably good at narrating, they do their books themselves.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
but for me, my target market was mostly in the US, so I'm sure they wouldn't understand my Indian accent. So that's why I had to hire somebody from America. But I think otherwise, that's also an option. If there is a good, maybe a studio kind of a setup, or at least a good microphone, people can try doing it
Yeah,
themselves as well.
what you've just said applies to me. I mean, I'm what you would call working class. So I don't like my accent. I don't think it's a very good speaking voice. I grew up poor, so I don't speak particularly well. I don't feel confident narrating my book because I don't feel I would do it justice. But if I had a really powerful voice and I spoke well, absolutely I would do it myself, 100%. Why wouldn't you? Because you're earning money that you would have to give to somebody else. So yeah, absolutely. If you're the type of person that can speak well, and you
Hmm.
have got a decent microphone and you can soundproof the room, then yeah, absolutely, I would say do it yourself. Why
Yeah, I
not?
think now that your voice is getting more popular through the podcast, you must try narrating your next book.
Yeah, possibly.
All right, Ian, I think that was a good roundup about the different ways to distribute your book online. So we'll see you next month with yet another show.
Great. Good to see you again.